that which gave them power, because there was a regime in Lagos that the government of America and Britain did not like. Now, what you got in the West, Brother Akbar, tell the audience, because I sent Brother Akbar there to look into the situation in Darfour, and James M. Toomey went himself. Tell them about the Janjaweed, tell them about the government, tell them about the farmers, tell them about the herders, tell them what is really happening on the ground there, and then we'll come back to why no black people were there on that mall.
Yes, Brother Minister, with your permission, first, thank you very much. I'd like to say to the audience, you know, we have a saying, when there's darkness, stand still. And most black people in America did not participate because the cloud that was around it that they really didn't understand. And then they were not invited in mass. They tried to get some to come. So the standing still is because they've heard so many different things. One of the things I want to start off where the minister left off at, when that peace accord was signed in the South, immediately this conflict broke out in the West. Now, until the last 5 days, most people in America knew nothing about the rebel group that started all of this. They had a peace accord in Abuja. The Sudanese government said that they would sign. The rebels first resisted. Bush sent the Deputy Secretary of State there to force the rebels. Now, how could you force the rebels to sign unless you got some clout with them, or were you supplying them with money and weapons and so forth, and you told them that this is what you have to do at that time? But the tragedy is that if you look at the government in Khartoum, now, whenever we look at the world and you talk about a government, Brother Minister, if you talked about Iraq during the time of Saddam Hussein, they'd show his picture. If you talked about Syria, they would show Assad. If you talked about Saudi Arabia today, they would show King Abdullah. If you talk about Egypt, they would show Mubarak. They've talked about the Sudan, but if I asked an audience across this country, what does the president of the Sudan look like? Most people do not know. He just went to Iran to meet with the leader of Iran, and very little information showing him in a picture with him, because he is as black as Akbar or either blacker. So he doesn't fit the script of the Arab who's killing Africans. Last week, the Washington Post published the 5 facts about Darfour. One of them on there that was blaring, and Mtumi, you can bear witness to this, is that all of the people are black. So if you talk about Arabs killing Africans, and Toomey, you went into a room when you were there. I went into the same room, and the man said, would the Arab tribe leaders stand up, that include the ones that are called Janjaweed? And when they stood up, they were all black. He said, now will the African tribes stand up? And they were all black. And so everybody, we looked at each other, because the picture in America is that these white Arabs are killing Africans. And the brother said clearly, what makes them the Arabs, they only speak Arabic, and they're herders, or you would call nomads. They do herding. What makes them Africans is they speak an African language and Arabic. They're all Muslims, and so they've had this clash for 500 years. This conflict with the rebels exacerbated it, because the government did go in and form a militia. And this militia was not to make people suffer and murder and rape, but it was to root out the rebels who had taken shelter among the villagers and the people. And this picture is not seen in America.
Yeah, that's a good history lesson.
Well, if I could just finish that point. You see, when you see Senator Tom Lantos leading the march on the Sudanese embassy, when you see Elie Wiesel, these are Zionists. These are pro-Israeli Zionists. Why are they leading the march? Do you really think that they have compassion for what is going on in Darfur? See, human suffering is human suffering. Don't tell me you have compassion for the blacks that are suffering in Darfur, and you got Palestinians suffering under your nose, and you don't care nothing about that? Come on. If there's 3.5 million dying in the Congo, you say nothing about that? The people that are dying in Uganda, you say nothing about that? No. Then what is the motive sitting up under this? This is what black people have to look at. It is that there's oil in the West, there's gold, there's uranium. and there's a 500-year fight. Like the early plains, you know, if I was a cattle rancher, you know, and you were a sheep herder, and we didn't like the sheep herders, and there's a fight between the cattle ranchers, the sheep herders. Then the railroad comes in, and they start taking the land. So all these boys fighting each other in early American history. This is what's going on in Darfur, and the mistake that the government made. But sincere, they saw these herders that were going to fight against the rebels, and they armed them. But then that 500-year-old hatred that's in them took precedence over rooting out the rebels, and the massacre began and so forth. So what I say to black people, you know, when the former slave masters who didn't care about lynching, who didn't care about our suffering, who don't care about what happened in Katrina, don't you be deceived that they care about what's happening over there and they don't care what's happening to us here. If you can promote black people calling black women bitches and whores and have no thought about that, you can promote gangster life, guns and drugs, and you have no thought about that, yet the black community is dying as we speak. How in the hell can I think you're concerned about Darfour when we are dying in Harlem and in Brooklyn and the south side of Chicago? Stop it. Black people, wake up to the deceit. We are not there because we were not invited, and that was not our party.
We're going to take a quick break.
Yeah, on that note, we're going to take a real quick break, too.
Yes.
And we're going to come back with more of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. Stay with us. You're listening to Open Line.